All right, everyone, we're going to get started.
Yeah, anyway.
Welcome to the November meeting of the Portsmouth Conservation Commission. The first thing on the agenda is the approval of our October minutes. Does anyone have any comments on the October minutes? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion for approval? And we're only missing one person, so Talia, will you vote this meeting?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the October meeting as currently presented.
Is there a second?
Well, second.
All in favor? Okay, great. Moving on, we did have a request by the city to move up the Fortree Island permit, so city staff can present. Would someone like to make a motion to move that up to the beginning, and then we'll go through the rest of the agenda?
I can make a motion to move up the Fortree Island application to the first item on the agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
All in favor? Great. So, first on the agenda, dredge and fill minimum impact for Fortree Island.
Hello. I'm Christine well, first, can you hear me through this mask? I can take it off too, but
I don't know if that's gonna carry
Okay,
on the
I'll take it off.
microphone. Sorry.
it's fine. Okay, my name is Christine Sproviero. I'm with the Department of Public Works for the City of Portsmouth. Presenting the standard dredge and fill wetlands permit application completed by Civil Works New England as a hired agent of the City of Portsmouth. Okay, thank you for putting up those pictures. So the Fortree Island Shoreline Repairs Project is designed to stabilize and restore 3 damaged shoreline areas within the waterfront park. The first area of repair is a 50 linear foot length of recessed revetment that has undersized stones compared to the adjacent revetments. You can kind of see on either side. And this had a viewing platform that collapsed, and it was removed because it was a public hazard. Let's see. And the proposed repairs are an overlay of correctly sized armor stone as shown in the project plans. I'm not sure if you have them. They're sheets WF2 and WF3, PDF page 92 and 93. Yep. So that's the layout, and then the next one just shows how the stones will be placed. So the second repair is relining of a 7-foot diameter corrugated steel culvert pipe under the causeway that's severely corroded and collapsing. Thank you. The proposed repair entails removing armor stone that's fallen into the culvert, cutting away deformed portions of the steel, and inserting a new 5-foot diameter HDPE culvert pipe. The ends will be bricked and mortared, and then the internal void space will be grouted. So there's no continuous space outside of the new diameter. And the armor stones will be reset around it that are required. And then the third repair is to the causeway leading to the sculpture. Yep, right there. So it's currently undersized, the revetment stone as well. It's slumped due to wave exposure, so the damaged sections will be reconstructed using larger, properly sized armored stones designed to withstand the prevailing wave conditions. All repairs will be performed in dry conditions without soil excavation, and it'll be impacting a total of 2,468 square feet within previously developed areas. All repair work is within existing footprints with no new impacts. These impacts below the highest observable tide line are temporary and necessary to prevent further erosion, protect infrastructure, and maintain public access. That's my summary.
Great, thank you. Questions from the commissioners? Go ahead.
Start. I just was checking on, well, two questions. One is, you're taking out the smaller stone?
No, we're going to place the armor stones on top of them.
Okay, so you leave the smaller stone in its vegetation there?
No, there isn't. No, not really. Maybe a little crabgrass, but
Okay, up above.
yeah.
And so my other question has to do with the culvert. I think that you guys are relining.
Yes.
And so the outer section of the culvert, that's gonna be replaced, or?
No, so we're gonna leave that there. We're gonna cut away the portions that are eroded, that are sticking out, just to clean it up, and then we'll insert the new pipe, which is 2 feet less in diameter, and then we'll grout the void space between the two pipes. We'll brick and mortar the outside to protect it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question or follow up to that? So what's the rationale for making the pipes smaller?
Well, there's no actual design criteria to the size
Right.
of that pipe. There's not, we couldn't really find a lot of extreme tidal action going in and out, so it just makes sense. A 5-foot diameter pipe will do the same thing, basically. It's the largest pipe we can get without, you can, I guess, get them customized, but they're exorbitantly expensive. And because there's no real design criteria required, we're going with the 5-foot.
So just kind of based on price.
Yeah, and design criteria, like nothing bigger is necessary for the tidal action that's there.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to what's the right way to think about it? And clearly it's a artificial, structure that is changing the flow patterns.
Yeah, and we looked at the old design, and we don't really understand why they put a culvert pipe in there
Yeah.
to begin with. So, okay, we'll keep it there. But yeah, we've had a couple engineers take a look, and they're kind of like, we don't know, but keep it. So.
I guess what's the risk of doing nothing with it over time? And then how long did the last one last? And how long do you project this one to last for?
So if we don't repair this culvert pipe, there is a significant risk of that path caving in.
Yeah.
Corrugated metal pipe, really, we don't use it anywhere anymore just because it corrodes so quickly. The new pipe should theoretically last for 50 years. So.
But that one's not been there for 50 years.
I think it was installed in 1972.
Okay.
I just looked at it today, so
So,
that's
wow.
off the top of my head.
If it's not really necessary, did you look at just filling it with flowable fill and abandon it in place?
We did. It was more impactful to do that than to just reline it. So just
More impactful in what? way?
then it was more impactful to fill the area in than to just keep it as is. So you'd have to do more excavation. The goal is to not disturb the soil with this work. So
Okay.
yeah, we wouldn't have to excavate. It prevents erosion.
Okay.
And I know it's probably in here, but I forgot. The new pipe is a plastic pipe, correct?
Yes, HDPE.
Yeah.
And when you say that has a lifespan of 50 years, what's happening in year 50 to that pipe if it's plastic? Is it kind of becoming brittle and breaking down, or in
Yeah.
bits?
Yeah, it gets brittle and it starts to break down, basically.
As opposed to the current pipe is just corroding. Correct.
Yes, yeah, corrugated metal pipe it corrodes and disintegrates. But yeah, that's pretty much the difference.
And I guess, sorry, the cost of the fill wasn't, did you look at what that would cost in comparison to this? Or it was really more, you were trying to eliminate impact?
Oh, the To fill in the pipe.
Yeah.
main. We didn't look at it. It just didn't, it wasn't a feasible option.
And maybe it's not that important, but I kind of think about like how if it's not serving a purpose, like why not fill it in once and for all and never have to go back again? Like if you have to update it in 50 years and you just have to put in another smaller pipe, it seems like an ongoing thing that's, I don't know, maybe could be avoided.
Chances are in 50 years, you'll probably have to go back and restore a lot of that area anyway, just because of the rise and the tidal action and everything. But yeah, that makes sense.
I'm also curious about the placement of the pipe. Will the lowest level of the pipe be similar to what it is now, and then it's just above the pipe that's getting filled in, to compensate for the difference in size?
Let me take a look. I think we're trying to place it right in the center.
Oh, yeah.
But it doesn't make that much of a difference.
Essentially, we're gonna line the pipe, we're just gonna slide it through.
Can you come to the microphone so you're captured on the audio?
Yeah, basically, we're just sliding a new pipe in there and grouting the annular space, just to armor it up. Because in terms of sizing criteria, there wasn't a whole lot of, it was installed and there was no real criteria for it. I think it relieves some pressure during the tidal changes is what we can figure out. But it was corrugated metal pipe. We're just gonna slide one size down in pipe and then basically grout the inside, just to support it, because there's a sewer line and there's a water line that's being supported there. And we just gotta make sure that doesn't collapse and doesn't cause a safety risk.
Right.
Can you state your name for the
Eric
record?
Fuder, I'm the city engineer, Portsmouth.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're doing that and then armoring the shoreline. Sorry, I'm late.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
Can you talk a little bit more about the utilities? You said that it's,
Right, so Fortree Island has a bathroom house facility, and there's a water fountain, so there's a abandoned irrigation system as well. So that house has, basically we have a plastic line, water line that goes in there, it gets cleared out at the end of the season, and then there's a wastewater ejector pump station there to service the bathroom. So that gets cleared out. I think it's winterized already for the season type thing, so. There will be additional infrastructure improvements at that bathhouse. The sidewalk is getting reworked there for ADA compliance, but then there's going to be a bigger series of bathroom improvements next year, and then also some other utility improvements around the site, like lighting and things like that. So this is really what prompted this whole project was that collapsed viewing platform. There's a safety risk, so that was removed, but then when that was removed, there's just a lot of shoreline armoring that needed to be done, so there's a bunch of erosion underneath it that had to be propped up, and we figured while we're going through the permitting process of armoring that shoreline, replace that or reinforce the culvert crossing, and then there's also, it's armoring around that little Spit Peninsula thing as well?
Yeah.
So it's just really preventing erosion, because right there's a bunch of spots where it's either a safety hazard or there's a risk of further degradation of that site, so.
thank you.
But there's not like an improvement, we're not like building anything out there, we're really just armoring and stabilizing the site and then preventing, if the collapse of the culvert would be a wastewater issue and other
Yeah, I think we were discussing that why not just excavate the culvert, fill it in and be done with it once and for all, but it sounds like if it's also kind of utility, maybe having some support of the utilities going out there, I don't know if that's.
Yeah, going through we're going back and forth. You could open excavate it. There's a lot more disturbance in terms of from an environmental construction perspective. So we're trying to just basically run a smaller pipe inside it and just stabilize it that way. We'll see as it goes. It might be more challenging to do it that way, but I think that's the preferred path in terms of impacts during construction.
Okay.
But
I can imagine too the pipe is, sorry, I just interrupted.
No, go ahead.
That the pipe is probably also providing a little bit of, organism passage. There's probably some critters that crawl back and forth, and
Yeah, you can
that
see-
has some value.
Yeah, and I think it's the tidal change, you see water going through there, so I think there's a pressure relief aspect of it where the tidal range, it's not just having to wrap around, and I think it probably keeps the sediment deposition in that little cove to a minimum, so you have some velocity to keep things moving. But yeah, you see there's quite a bit of biological growth there as well, so.
This is more curiosity. Is there a plan to rebuild that overlook, that platform that you removed, or is that not part of the project?
So there wasn't really a master plan, and so we were talking with our facilities folks and the parks folks, and there really isn't a plan to replace it. It was kind of rickety. It was sort of a liability for the city to some extent, because it was overhanging and people could get themselves in trouble. So the thought was not to do that. There's plenty of open space there. It was really just armor it and keep it like a safe site.
I'm just more curious.
Yeah. But we're doing a little bit of planning activities with the parks folks and our facilities folks, just to kind of dress up that site a bit, because it could use some, fencing improvements, and there's other amenity improvements, I think, that we're looking at for next year.
Is there any opportunity to like add plantings along the top of all that revetment to help with kind of slumping and that sort of stuff? We've also seen in other projects, they do kind of pocket plantings in the revetment. I don't know if there's too much wave action or, what.
I mean, part of the reason for replacing or to armor that revetment is because of the erosion on top of it, so it's getting above it. We could look at that. I mean, the problem is putting it in there, then it's just challenging, because working with Corin and Max, just keeping vegetation alive there is challenging. That's why we're really protecting the pine trees adjacent while we do the sidewalk improvements there. So it would be hard to do as part of this project. I think it's probably suited for like a bigger picture, like,
Master
we're going to
plan.
upgrade the lighting. Let's look at other options for plantings and other things on the site.
Okay.
But
Yeah, I think that would definitely be something that should be looked at for future improvements.
yeah, I think Corin and Max definitely say, it's like we're trying to protect what we have, but I think figuring out what we can do to plant there, you get a couple pine trees, there's a yew, there's not many things that grow well there. I think we've tried to plant some, but they've not been super successful.
I mean, even just like, I'm talking more like lower.
Lower vegetation?
Yeah.
But I think we got to do it, like, we didn't really analyze that as part of the project. This was like, let's just stabilize the site so we don't have some, like, negative impacts to, like, for erosion and
Yeah.
like, utility impacts. But I think as we do, it's probably more well-suited to, like, a further analysis, but this was just like, let's get some rocks placed.
Yeah, understood.
It is neat to think about, right? Because it's such a visible place, it's a neat place to do a little bit of demonstration work. So if you did ever want to, get some help from the commission, we could help you kind of think that through, what we could be demonstrating there in terms of good buffer protection.
Probably have to
and-
anyways, because if we're going to
Yeah.
do the electrical conduits and stuff, there'll be earth serving activities, so it would make sense to come back and kind of present some ideas.
Yeah, like the junipers that were at that?
The junipers were doing great
Yeah.
at that other
Yeah, the
site.
You could see them
junipers,
kind of
cedar type thing.
being planted
Yeah.
in there.
Those are some pines, right? Those seem to work okay. There's a couple yews that are huge next to it. Those seem like they're doing well. But lower stature stuff would make sense. Yes, just to make sure, I think having a bigger kind of like a planning exercise on what makes the most sense. Because I know it's pretty heavily used. We don't want to consume too much of the open real estate. So it's like finding that balance.
Yep.
But
Yeah, and even the rocks, I can also see there being like a creative way to, if you're adding rocks, but make it kind of creating places where people can explore and, through the kind of the complexity of the rocks, right? You're creating habitat and tide pools and I don't know. It'd be fun to kind of think about what you could do there.
Definitely, yeah.
we did a lot.
Any other questions? You ready for a motion? And this is a DES permit, right?
I will make a motion that we recommend the DES dredge and fill project for Four Tree Island.
Recommend approval?
Well, yeah. Did I not say that?
No, but I mean,
You're recommending it. Yeah. Like, wait, am I supposed to recommend something else?
do we have a second?
I can second.
Okay, discussion? No?
Really good questions.
Yeah, I mean, I think, right, this is the fact that stuff's gonna have to be done out here like every 50 years or sooner kind of makes me kind of question what to do now, but
Yeah.
I like the idea of maybe having more of a master plan out there that we can be involved in, that involves vegetation, some demonstration areas, things like that, that make it worth kind of protecting now and kind of figuring out the future for it.
I do struggle with the plastic piece, but that's just kind of
Yeah.
always,
I mean, it would
I
keep
don't know if
the
that
metal
another
be better.
material,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know if
I know.
but-
Well, I guess if it's already going to happen every 50 years and the other one already lasted 50 years, even though it's metal,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess what's hard is that they're grouting it in, so it's not going to be so easy to remove and replace.
It'll
and then
never
you could
be
put
removed.
Keep going more and
Oh,
more.
smaller and smaller.
Yeah, yeah. It almost, to me, it almost felt better to just fill it in and grout in the fill. So then it's just this kind of thing, but that's obviously a really big pipe. That'd be a big solid
Yeah.
bunch of fill.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the plastic for me too.
Or just do another metal one. Like,
Well, I guess that would be the other.
it's going to
other option.
deteriorate
I don't
anyway.
know if that's better or worse. I don't have any
Right.
opinion or expert.
Well, it's not like breaking up into microplastics.
Right, and that's what I was concerned about with it being brittle in however many years.
Well, we've seen those metal culvert pipes, they just don't last. They're like a 25-year asset, so, I mean, that it lasted as long as it did is very surprising, especially considering the salt conditions. So even concrete pipes in that type of environment don't last, and basically eventually get to the point where the reinforcing rusts out. And just installing a concrete, we couldn't install it from the side. It would have to be an open cut for concrete, because those weigh like 25,000 pounds. That diameter is very, very hard to get around. It's very heavy. So we were going back and forth on like, what would be the least amount of impact during construction? And plastic lasts, it's one of those things that, yeah, there are downsides in the sense that it does break down, but it will last a lot longer than the metal one would, but.
Yeah. I think for me, if we put in as a stipulation that it's just inspected every, I don't know, 10 years or something, then hopefully we can deal with it before it starts degrading to a point of problems.
We keep it recessed. We could do that when we grout it in. We could recess it in so like it basically doesn't extend out type thing. Like you kind of taper it like it's shown right as it is now. We can try to keep it where the metal is the exterior. We grout and we brick around it and grout so that there's less UV hitting the actual exposed pipe. That makes
Yeah,
sense?
I think that would be helpful probably.
Okay. So we can try to, we can like trim those edges a bit. I think we can do that.
Okay. Do we want to put that as a stipulation? So, how do we want to word that, like
We can
minimizing the UV impact by
Minimize the
trimming?
exposed pipe.
Yeah.
We can minimize the exposed
Yeah.
piping.
And then maybe do an inspection just every 10 years, just to make sure that
Yeah.
it's still holding up.
So 2 stipulations.
Yeah, I guess, 2 stipulations. Or, who made that motion?
I
Are
did.
you
I'm
okay with
fine
that?
with that,
And
yeah.
who seconded?
I did.
Are you good with that?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any wetland boundary markers?
Just right on the edge of the rock?
Down the middle.
I don't.
I feel like that's part of the master plan.
Yeah.
right? Like if they're
Yeah.
gonna go out and do work, maybe they can
Yeah.
talk about the value of that piece of property as well.
Do we want a stipulation to say, hey, reach out to us when you do the master plan? Don't forget about it.
Could be a note.
Yeah, that's right,
It
that's
could
for
be a note
DES, you're
without
right.
being a stipulation.
What's that?
It could be a note, just as
Yeah.
we'd love to work with you on a master plan.
Okay. Any further discussion? Are we ready for a vote? Yeah, okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. All right. So back to the beginning of the agenda. I have wetland conditional use permit application for 250 McKinley Road.
Hello, Chris Delisle from 250 McKinley Road, requesting the wetland conditional use permit for some work in our backyard. We're proposing the removal of an existing sunroom and deck and installation of 2 smaller egresses off the rear of the home and a poured concrete pad for an air conditioning unit that we're installing with a 182-ish, 180 square foot decrease to impervious surface as compared to current conditions. The existing sunroom and deck is about 224 square feet, depicted on the slide before that. And it was going to be replaced with those 2 smaller egresses that were depicted on that drawing there at the rear of the property. as part of our upcoming home renovation. Those egresses will include landing areas of about 42 square feet and stairs onto that existing patio in the rear yard. We'll be installing energy efficient mini splits as well as part of our renovation project. And on the west side of the home, which is on the right side of the screen there, you're facing the wetlands, we'll have about a 6 square foot concrete pad installed right next to where our current electrical is, and away from our sleeping areas, so I don't have to listen to the hum of an AC at night. About 8,000 square feet of our property, which is a little over 9,000 square feet, is squarely in the wetland buffer. This is our third time that we've appeared to do work in our backyard. And 2 previous projects that we've done to mitigate substantial runoff in the backyard is we've added a ton of grading and native plantings. We have a large rain garden in the rear to collect runoff from our roof and our sump. And we have berms across the whole back, or swales rather, as well as additional vegetation to prevent anything that goes into that wooded area between our home and the Don Darrow field. And in addition, we have some front yard mitigation as well off of our driveway, just acknowledging that water flows to sewer, which eventually makes its way to the wetlands anyway. So whether the front or the back of the property, we have history of just doing what's right by the wetlands. And we'd like to continue to do so by reducing our footprint on the property. With that, I'll take questions.
Great, thank you. Questions from the commissioners?
Don't usually see a removal of things.
What did you
I
say?
said we don't usually see a removal of
I know, right?
things. Sorry.
I will say on the sidewalk, it was very helpful to see, like, he's, the pictures help too, all the stuff that they have done in the backyard to try to infiltrate water before it gets to the wetland, which is right on, that wetland is, I think, Don Darrow's property, school property, yeah.
That's correct.
So they have, I feel like, have been pretty good stewards with the property that they have, which has got its challenges for being almost entirely in the buffer. All right, are we ready for motion? It's quick.
I will make a motion that we recommend approval for the wetland conditional use application for 250 McKinley Road.
Second.
Right, and I think we wanted to put the placards down, or?
Oh, the wetland buffer placards.
Yeah, in the staff memo, so we suggested we have required wetland boundary placards to be put on any sort of plan sets that come before the commission, and they're supposed to be permanently installed in the wetland buffer. We typically have them on the 25-foot line because that's where we don't allow cutting in a wetland buffer. But I think with your property, we were thinking, or at least staff was thinking, that it would be nice to see a small placard along maybe your stone wall or the tree line that says like environmentally sensitive area, which is something that we recommend. We have small, like 4-inch.
Yeah, they're not big.
That usually go on trees or on stakes. Just especially during construction, it's helpful so that people that aren't familiar with your property are able to see that and, you know, not tread there or dump anything there or things like that or really disturb it.
So during the construction period, we'd have a notice just saying this is the area that's.
Yeah, it's permanently installed prior to construction, so it'll be like a little 4-inch placard.
To remain after construction too. Like it
Right.
just says, what does it say? Environmentally sensitive area or something
It says
like
do
that.
not disturb or cut.
And it's kind of just an educational thing
Yeah.
that we hope that all property owners would have, just to give awareness. And again, it's little, it can just be in a stake, it can be right by your stone wall, like nothing too offensive.
Okay, and we would ask all my other neighbors and things that do work in their backyards to do the same things
Yep,
in the
yep,
future.
it's in our ordinance, so,
Okay,
yep,
yeah, I don't see an issue with that.
yeah. Are we good with that
I'm
stipulation?
fine adding
Yeah,
that stipulation, yep.
Any further discussion?
I would just make a comment, not a question, that to thank you very much for being as conscientious with your multiple projects and this level of detail in your presentation, both on site and here, made it super easy to understand and work with. So a representative project, I would say, that makes it very efficient to
Yeah.
work with folks. So I thank you for that.
Probably the quickest deliberation we've had in a long time, so.
And the sidewalks are a nice touch you've added. That's a good step. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think this is just I wasn't at the site walk, which I apologize. I was curious what you plan to do in that space that you're removing the sunroom from. Like, are you planting grass seed or something? I don't know.
We currently have Vigo Gardens just outside of that area. It's all crushed stone underneath that. We're going to keep the crushed stone and put more Vigo Gardens in because we had a great haul this year. It gets good sun.
It's cool.
All right, are we ready for a vote? All in favor? Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Next on the agenda, we have 65 Onyx Lane. Someone here to speak to that?
This project? No. He said they would be here. Shoot. Do you want to?
Want to skip it for now?
Are they like in the hallway or something?
What's that?
Are they in the hallway or something? There's got a lot of people standing out there.
Yeah, I think I just see one guy. It's Eric. We can push it till later
Okay.
in the.
All right, we'll move on and,
Need a motion, or
yeah, do we want to make a motion to take it out of order if they show up?
I can make a motion to take 65 Onyx Lane out of order until the homeowners or representative shows up to present.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Great. All right, then we'll move on to the work session for 1185 and 1187 Sagamore Avenue.
Yes, good evening, members of the commission. My name's Sean Toby. I'm an engineer with Haley Ward. Here to present the project. Drew Olhowski did the site walk with everyone last week. I'm filling in for him tonight on this project. So as you can see, and from the site walk, 1185, 1187 contains 2 residential buildings as well as a commercial space for an electric company. The southern lot, the existing family house, there's a wetland to the south, and then there's wetlands across the street as well to the east, and then there's a wetland on the adjacent parcel to the far northeast. And those 100-foot wetland buffers extend across most of the southern, well, all of the southern lot, which is primarily developed, whether it's impervious or grass space. And then the lot to the north contains a lot of impervious from the parking areas, the gravel area out back, as well as the dwelling unit. And then switching to the next page, the proposed development. So the applicant here is looking to keep the house to the south, but pull a lot of the impervious that's there now. There's a driveway right in front of the building. Pull that back and access that property from the northern lot and the northern driveway. And then on the northern lot, the 2 lots would be merged, but on the northern existing lot, construct 5 townhouse-style attached dwelling units with a parking area. And again, this is a workshop, so we wanted to come in, kind of present this plan, get some ideas, and kind of see where the commission was and what they were thinking on it, and what we could do to improve this plan as we go forward with the project. But in this situation here, where everything is pulled back, tried to pull that back out of the 100-foot buffer as much as we could, working, obviously getting that driveway out of there with an overall net reduction of just around 3,200 square feet out of that 100-foot buffer with the project. And again, these 2 dwelling units right now are currently on septic systems. They're not tied into the city system, so as part of this project, both of those would tie into the sewer and eliminate the on-site septic. And I guess I can turn it over to any questions. Obviously, we're still early in the process, but wanted to get some feedback and comments and work to do anything we can to improve the plan as we go forward.
To clarify, you're combining the lots, which allows you to have how many total?
The total would be
That's-
5, and they were intending to ask for a variance to get an additional dwelling unit.
Okay. So the proposal you're looking at to start is those 5 along the side, and you'd have to get a variance for,
One additional, like
Something, so-
maintaining the the existing house. The house on the southern lot, they didn't want to tear down. It was in good condition. So the intent was just to improve, pulling the driveway out of the buffer as much as they could and reducing the impervious.
okay.
As follow-up to that, if you did tear down the existing house, if you kept with the 5 buildings on the other lot, what would you do with that piece of property?
If the house were to go and then just stay with the 5, I mean, I'd have to discuss the applicant, the option of tearing the house down or maybe eliminating one of the 5 townhouses. I think financially it might make sense to keep the house. But if it did financially make more sense to just go with 5 new townhouses, that area could be re-vegetated.
So the townhouse that's closest to the road is completely in the 100-foot buffer, correct?
From the one adjacent, yeah, across that gets bisected by the street.
Which I'm not going to say, but
Okay. And the driveway pervious?
Right now, it would be standard pavement. And most of, sorry, just to clarify on that before the question, but most of that proposed driveway is all within the developed impervious area that's impacting the buffer on site already.
But you'd be ripping out everything
It would
to
be-
start with anyway.
it would be
so
ripped
it'd be
out.
a fresh slate.
Correct, yeah. And it would obviously be, brought up to modern stormwater standards, treatment standards, runoff collection, detention. The kind of hatched area there is where we were thinking of doing some type of stormwater detention and treatment.
Hatched area in the buffer?
Or, I guess not hatched, but the
cloud around.
the clouded area, yeah. Yeah, it would, yeah, right there, yep.
Part of that's in the buffer, yeah.
So it would be in the buffer, yes.
What type of stormwater management you think would be happening
I
there?
mean, I think at this point it would be a detention, some type of detention, maybe, rain garden or infiltration. We could also maybe look at other measures further upstream in the parking areas. Still early at this point.
And there is existing vegetation there where you're talking about doing some of the stormwater management?
That's
There's-
actually where the existing driveway is. So right now, that's all impervious pavement.
Okay, but up on the road, isn't there? Well, maybe there wasn't vegetation on the road.
Tree.
Well, I guess,
There were
yeah,
trees.
the northern half of that, there is some, but kind of right there. So that's all, there's a little strip of vegetation there, but then it comes back to the pavement across the front of the house before getting to that wetland on the south.
And that would have to be removed for the driveway? Or for stormwater management?
We could work around leaving, with the new driveway going in further to the north, we could leave some of that and then maybe put the stormwater a little bit further in the area of impervious. Obviously, we're going to try to keep as much of that vegetation there. So we could definitely try to work around that.
Yeah, that would probably be advisable, just because that's something that we don't normally approve of, is to put the stormwater management in the buffer. I know that you're tight on space, but.
Okay.
And if you're doing it instead of a driveway, that's one thing, but if you're cutting down established trees, it's not.
Yeah, we can make note to work on leaving that, and, if we can just kind of snake a pipe around that and then have our stormwater where the driveway was, I think that would be, that would work well.
How are you on parking ratios? Like, is that surface parking all necessary per zoning, or are you adding?
I believe we're at where we need to be with the garage and then the guest. We'll definitely take a look at that, and if we can go right to the bare minimum of what's needed with impervious, we'll bring it right down to the minimum that we can for turning, fire access, and then parking.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I need to see at least the portion of the driveway that's in the buffer to be pervious. And then also, I'm not really thrilled about that 5th unit, the one that's almost entirely in the buffer. I don't know how the rest of the commission feels about that, and if it were to come back still on the application, how we would feel about it.
isn't it already there?
No, so the existing structure is,
Oh, are you talking about on the end?
yeah, the one closest to
Okay.
Sagamore Avenue.
So where I guess maybe this is a question for the applicant, but how did this wetland map that's specifically on here get created, and why doesn't it show up on our map?
Yeah, so we noticed that.
Because that's like,
too.
I'm struggling with that
Yeah,
right
because
now.
you can't, it's not showing up on the.
Is it because of the town, like Rye being right there?
It might be that when Mark West did his estimate that he just didn't go that far, but this was also done by, I think, Sam Hayden, who's a certified
Yeah,
wetland scientist.
yeah, it was done in January of this year
So
by an
more detailed.
on-site, or, sorry, on-staff wetland scientist.
Okay.
Yeah, ours probably isn't as detailed as that would be, not as.
Yeah, because it's just like
capturing the
completely
small-
Yeah, I
outside
forgot,
of
we,
it.
we noticed that during our pre-meeting, we're like, it's not showing up on the map geo.
Yeah, and so when we were at the site, it's water. There was surface water in
Oh,
the
wow.
wetland. So, and it goes further back, and then it goes down in front of the road, I guess, and then
Oh,
goes
wow.
under a culvert across the street, across the road, to another wetland that is city, I guess, is it conservation? It's not conservation land, but it's city-owned.
I think it's conservation.
Yeah, it says conservation on the map, yeah.
We have an easement on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it goes.
Okay.
And we're not sure exactly where it comes from, but it seems to go back in, definitely into Rye. So it goes back a ways.
Okay.
So it would be great to have pictures for everybody if we can't make another site visit to see, because everybody couldn't make the site visit.
Yep, no, we can definitely add those in.
I think combining the two driveways into one is definitely
These are like,
positive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's some precedent here when you're trying to get something in the buffer to just try and do everything you can with the impact that you are creating to minimize that. So like switching to pervious pavement, maybe for the whole driveway, it's sort of like swapping area in a way, like doing the best you can with the site that you have. And then the stormwater areas too, like, maybe doing some kind of oversized area, I don't know. So I guess that's kind of what makes me vote one way or another, is when,
Yeah.
you do have impact and you realize that, but you're, making it as minimal as possible or giving back somewhere else on the site,
And we do have a lot of green space where the existing single-family is to the south. I think we have a lot of opportunity to look there and enhance that vegetation as well. I mean, right now, it's all grass.
Yeah.
Probably don't need that much of a lawn and grass area. So if we could get plantings closer to the wetland, especially where that's not already disturbed with impervious, I think that's an opportunity to enhance something in there and definitely make that even better than, kind of what it is, on top of some advanced, stormwater treatment upstream.
I'm not totally sure of the topography. Is the units that you're building are higher than the house? Is that true?
Correct, yeah, as you go north, it gets higher.
So I almost wonder about using the whole southern property kind of as a stormwater strategy for what's on the north side of the property, rather than try and kind of compact it to one area as you've shown. I don't know what that would look like, but just sort of thinking all of that as kind of receiving runoff from the
Yeah,
north part
yeah,
of
we
the
could do
site.
that, or it could even be split to maybe follow more of the natural, kind of where each water is going.
Right, yeah.
Definitely want to treat it upstream, and then maybe fill in down below with the vegetation after it's treated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess I have less problem with the unit on the end, only because I feel like the last meeting we talked about a wetland on the opposite side of a street. There's only so much you can really
Yeah,
do.
true.
I guess when a street.
Yeah, that buffer is from that other wetland.
Yeah. So then I think in my mind it's like, well, what can we do to improve the whole property?
That's a good point, Alice.
And what about the drainage going underneath the road? Are you guys making changes to that? And
Yeah, I think, it would definitely stay in place. We keep that culvert. I think what's happening, and the reason that that's there, is water's just getting trapped on this site. And as we get into the drainage design, we'll just work to, obviously, put less water through that pipe, through the stormwater system, and try to keep more of that on site, and definitely improve, what's flowing under the street into that wetland. Right now, that's all pavement getting into that culvert. There's no treatment. There's nothing on that now. So with the new design, it's going to take that water, collect it, treat it, And so it'll be a cleaner product that's, draining to that wetland across the street.
Could you just point out exactly where the culvert is?
Yeah, so, yeah, right there. And then if you just follow it left on the other side, right there. So it's just kind of collecting, it's a low spot on site, and just taking that water from our site and sending it across the street.
Okay, so it's not actually collecting this like creek that's flowing through
It's
the property.
flowing to the right. It's flowing from this site into the wetland across the street.
So the creek kind of comes along the southern property and goes alongside the road? Is that its path?
So this,
Like, how does that? I'm sorry, I obviously wasn't at the site walk.
yeah, so that wetland is independent of the one across the street. So that one keeps flowing south into Rye. And then the one across the street,
And that isn't what they said, or somebody
Oh,
said
sorry.
at the site.
does it eventually,
Yeah, I think this goes up. I think these are connected through a drainage ditch. Is that correct?
That's what they said at the site, so I don't know. They,
Yeah, you can see storm drain running to the left of the
Yeah.
road, all the way along the east side of the property.
okay. We can definitely take a look at that and then just make sure we, are treating it and having it all function properly.
I would just say that would be a priority for me as a commissioner. This is not necessarily your responsibility, but there's an immense amount of development happening on that road. And so now there is a significantly more water that is running across Sagamore Ave and going into that conservation area. And that conservation land eventually dumps out under Wentworth Road right into Sagamore Creek directly. And so I think there is some significant importance to making sure that that water is well treated before it's just kind of flowing onto the road and into that greater watershed. So that would definitely be, I'd appreciate some thought and consideration
no,
into
we'll-
how that's addressed. And I don't necessarily think this is a question for you, but Kate, has the city thought at all about traffic, considering all the development and all the multi-units that are happening along Sagamore, and like what that impact is?
So this will go, since it's more than 3 dwelling units, this will also go to TAC, which is the Technical Advisory Committee.
Yeah, yep.
And the city traffic engineer will also be studying that in terms of relating to abutters and how turning out onto Sagamore will be like and things like that.
Yeah, because I just know there's development happening in Rye, which is obviously separate, but this is the third project within, I don't know, a quarter of a mile that's had significant redevelopment. So I didn't know how that plays into things.
Yeah, that would be more of a public works question, I think. But I'm sure that'll be captured at TAC too. So maybe we can, if it comes back as a full application, kind of follow it with TAC too and make recommendations their way too.
Yeah.
And I do stand corrected, I'm sorry, that wetland, I missed the culvert on that driveway, so it does flow to the
Underneath
north.
the driveway.
Yeah, yep, sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah.
so for more on trees behind the new building on the north side or northwest side, and then also the other side to the west. I think when we were on the site, they mentioned something about having to cut some of those larger trees down.
Yeah, and I think talking with Drew this morning on that with the design, we're going to look to shift that south and save as many of those trees as we possibly can. 'Cause towards the back there, we do want to keep a buffer for multiple reasons, but definitely, obviously we don't want to cut trees if we don't have to, so.
Yeah, and that helps with the stormwater management, the mature trees, and, sort of slowing down the water
Yes, yeah.
on some level, in addition to lighting and things like that. And so personally, I feel like, since people weren't at the site, there is existing impervious area, and you're having a net decrease in that, but it's relative to the fact that it's just a gravel driveway behind there and a gravel parking lot behind there, and not buildings per se. There is a building, but it's obviously not, the envelope isn't going to be as big as you have now, or proposing. So there are definitely going to be a lot of new impacts to the area. So the pervious driveway and the whole site would help for infiltration, and then, understanding where the stormwater goes and as much planning as possible. And I would personally not really favor having it be 6 units on the site for that reason.
Okay.
Because the buildings are going to be the biggest impact as far as impervious and runoff. And if we're concerned about the wetland across the street and it's ending up there. So that's just sort of my take on it. I know it's up to the, going for a variance, but, so.
It's, right now it's proposed to be, okay, so I'm saying this.
6 including the house.
Yeah, okay.
And then there'd be opportunity to maybe move things around a little bit more too on that side of the property to have less impacts.
Any other ideas or comments for the applicant?
It's nice that parking is underneath the building, right? Is that how
Yeah,
it's
that'd be the garage
embedded
spaces.
in?
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I'm assuming they're going to encourage you to add a sidewalk. Seems like that's what the other developments have
Yeah.
committed
yep.
to doing.
Yep. Going through the TAC process, all that will come up, and we'll work with them to continue with the corridor or whatever plans are in place for the larger projects.
Right, which will affect other things, obviously, the 5th unit, as Barbara was mentioning, but also the trees, I don't know, just,
Yeah.
It's gonna be a little bit of a different game if you have to, and those sidewalks, right, are also important, so.
Yeah. Yep.
We good? Anything else for now?
I don't know, maybe it impacts the trees more, but it seems like if there were only 4 units on that one lot rather than 5, the whole thing could be like almost pivoted or shifted a little bit, and almost nothing would be in the wetland buffer.
Yeah, there's more opportunity to like.
And like the
so you're saying
parking
move
could
things
probably come
around a
out
little bit.
then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed.
I think we don't really have a landscape plan per se, but I think like trying to do the best you can to limit mowing away from the wetland, which I wasn't there on site, but I assume this open area is pretty much all mowed. So I guess like I would be excited to see a whole landscape plan that addresses like sort of healing the site in a way, bringing as much vegetation back as you can.
And we're also finding that we want to know what you're cutting. So
Yes.
we want to know exactly what
Yeah,
you're
we
cutting.
can have that more defined.
And it's super hard. I mean, I know it's like a battle, right, to keep the old trees and to convince the construction crew to
I know.
abide by that. We've seen over and over again that those promises are not actually honored once, construction starts. So, making sure that you've got a plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
And maybe a mitigation plan, maybe a plan A and a plan B or whatever.
Okay.
Because I know there's lots of phases, right, of the whole
Yeah,
permitting and
yeah.
planning, and like things happen for other reasons, but. Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us before we?
No, I think this is,
Discussion?
I think this was great. We'll definitely take all the comments back, try to work in all of those, and be back when we got a further advanced plan.
Great.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Let's see if 65 is here.
Yeah, is anyone here to speak to 65 Onyx Wetland Conditional Use Permit? All right, we'll keep moving on. Next on the agenda is the work session for 105 Bartlett.
Good afternoon, Alex Monastero on behalf of Chimberg Builders. I'm joined by Neil Hansen from Ty and Bond and Shauna Samus from Chimberg as well. So a couple of you are at the site visit with us, this project 105 Bartlett Street. We're in the very preliminary stages here, but just wanted to get some initial feedback from you all as we move into a design phase. It's sort of a unique site. It's a 2.75 acre parcel situated between North Mill Pond and the railroad tracks. The overall vision for the site is to extend the trail access in that 50-foot buffer area, which would make a connection from Bartlett to Maplewood possible. And we show a potential pocket park as well as part of the overall design. And then, of course, some residential units as well. What we're laying out here right now is 8 residential row houses in 2 3-unit buildings and a duplex building. But we've looked at a number of different concepts for the site, and so as we get into full design, I think we'll flesh that out a little bit more. When we're on site, everybody who was there got to see the area that we're proposing, the pocket park, is already sort of disturbed. It was a laydown area at one point, and so we'd be able to reclaim that and make it a really nice vegetated area for people to enjoy when they access that trail system that it's already in. The trail system's already there. It's not as defined as it would be in a proposal like this, but it's already being used as trail access in there. It would require some relocation of utilities. We would extend the road from the existing multifamily site. And so you can see on this is a very basic sketch plan, but the road would come in along the railroad tracks, which is gray there, and then lead into the multifamily row homes, the 3-unit and the duplex unit row homes there. Behind the row homes, where you see in green, that's the 50-foot buffer. And so we're not proposing any building impacts within that 50-foot buffer. There are a couple of view corridors on site. Those are noted in the light green color that you see coming through, and so we're honoring those with no buildings, obviously, in there to block on this conceptual plan. We think this would be a really good use of the land. It's sort of leftover land in between and would bring some vitality to that area, would allow that corridor to exist with a recreation opportunity to benefit the neighborhood and the city of Portsmouth in a really great way. And then also adding in that pocket park to just have another recreation area along the trail. We talked about some potential education opportunities in that pocket park as well. When we were on site, the migratory bird species and the living shoreline were all discussed, and so we think there's a great opportunity to put some educational materials along the trail and the park to help explain to people who get to benefit from these areas what's existing out there. So I'm happy to answer any questions. We don't have any full design at this point. This is all conceptual to get feedback, but if there are general questions, I'm certainly very happy to answer them.
I'm sorry I couldn't make the site walk, but I'm just curious. I'm looking for clarification. So based on this picture, the development of the 3 buildings in progress is to the left, correct? And so this is kind of further along North Mill.
That's right.
And so when we originally got that application, there were row houses in this stretch. And so this is different than what was originally proposed to us in those early applications?
Yeah, that's right. So we weren't Chimberg Builders was not party to any of those previous applications or the multifamily approvals.
Yep.
So this is a new application for this development of the site. I think that there have been other conversations about putting row homes here in the past, but this would be a new proposal.
Okay. And just, again, sorry, but can you kind of roughly show me where these row houses sit in comparison to where those multifamily ones will be? I'm having...
Yeah, I brought a
In the packet?
aerial map, if it's okay to pass it out.
Yeah, and I was just going to suggest that everybody has that on their laptops or whatever. Would it be okay for you to pull up the aerial of that area?
Now? Sure.
That would, because nobody else went to the site visit but me. So, and this is critical.
Yeah.
That, I mean, and I've already requested that they do another site visit because this is
Thank you.
really important for this piece of property to understand it.
So on this aerial map that you see, there are 2 yellow lines, again, very conceptual. It does not show the actual property lines, but just to give you an idea of where the start and the end of the property are, to the left of the yellow line that aligns with Cabot Street is the multifamily project that's going in. To the right of the yellow line is an existing commercial building, and then Maplewood Ave is, at the end of that.
Can you say where the end of your property is?
It's shown on the map that I gave you in yellow.
In the yellow, okay, that's the same, okay.
This context was super helpful. And, you know, some of us, including me, haven't been on the commission that long, and I know there's been a lot of work on the North Mill Pond and visioning on the part of the city, and, I don't know, Kate, is there any other context to share? I mean, I know the city's got kind of a long-term vision. How does this fit into the long-term vision?
For the trail, you mean?
I guess so, yeah. And
That's sort of the city's interest is continuing that multi-use path from the 105 Bartlett site right now. And it sounds like they're thinking of putting it along where there already is kind of a walked area or well-trafficked area. That's our interest, is kind of continuing that into the downtown. There's still one property that we don't have any talks with currently, which is the salt pile property, Granite State Minerals. But I think this is one of the last few pieces that we're trying to connect. So we definitely have an interest in that, trying to get the public walking along that.
so that hasn't already been committed, the trail on this property? Or, I mean, it sounds like it exists in an informal way. But
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so
Doug's
we
here,
would
maybe he
commit
can
it,
talk to it.
we would commit it as part of our approvals, but at this point, the trail that exists on this property is private property. People are using it. I mean, it exists. There's a trail in there, but as part of these approvals, we're, you know, super happy to make the connection with the parcel on the left and, you know, create the vision. And it's within the master plan of the city of Portsmouth pretty extensively, showing this area being developed in this type of way with the trail.
What's the vision for these? Like, are they all going to be sold or kept, or what's the?
Yeah, the intent is that they will be for sale.
Okay.
What is the, sorry, I wasn't at the site walk, but sort of what is the character of that area in green? Like, what does it look like now? What do you envision it?
Yeah, so there is an existing trail. I can't be at the microphone and point over there, so bear with me, but.
You can bring
there
the
might-
microphone with you. There's that
Oh,
one right
this
there
one?
you can take with you.
I can
also
van
has a
away
laser
the
pointer.
board over there. Okay.
And also, don't actually touch the screen, because it does things.
Thank you.
It does.
This has a green light. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, wonderful. So this is the existing trail. You can sort of see going through there. That's totally travelable. There is some vegetation, but this is that like lay down area that I was talking about. And so this area that is currently pretty desolate of any vegetation is what we would hope to reclaim as the pocket park that we envision as part of the site. There is some existing like low brush shrubbery primarily along here, and then there is a term that I learned that I didn't know before was living shoreline. There's been some shoreline reclaimed along this area as well, and it looks way prettier on site than it does in this aerial picture. So when we get you back out there for another site walk, you can take a peek at that. But that's the deal. I mean, we're sort of sandwiched in between North Mill Pond and the railroad tracks here. So this is not a undisturbed natural site in the terms that, you know, there is not any super mature vegetation out there. It's already being used with some trail access, and there have been impacts out there as it's been used as a laydown area. So we really feel like this project would reclaim a lot of that area and be an overall benefit to the site.
And then, so what's sort of your vision for what that area in green would be? Because I sort of see these townhouses as thinking of it as their backyard in a way. And so what kind of improvements do you think you would make, and how would you kind of delineate that?
Yeah, so the trail is really spelled out in the ordinance on what it needs to be, and so it would be, you know, city area that would be, it's, you know, 10 feet wide, and so there are very specific parameters about what the trail would look like. I think that, you know, as we move forward, we would develop a landscape plan so you could see what other types of reclamation would happen along the trail, but I think it'll be pretty clearly delineated, that it won't feel like yard area. It will feel like a public use trail.
Where's the 100-foot buffer on this map? I think I'm missing that part.
Yes, it's shown in a red dashed line on the site plan, and I can hop over there again, point it out.
Is it like next to the drain line? Is that?
So it's this line here. I'm not going to touch it. I'm going to hover. So most of the site.
So the entire site is in the wetland buffer?
The entire site is within the 100.
Okay.
Yep, pretty much.
And then while you're there, that dotted green line is the trail. I know this is some of the conversation we've had with other developments is, we try to maintain the first 25 feet, but a lot of times the trail is proposed to be in that, so.
Yeah, so the trail as it exists is already within the 25 feet. And so our proposal and our preference would be to leave the trail where it is and improve it and its exact location, because it's already, and if you want to pull the aerial up again, you can see it, it's already there.
No, where within that? Is it closer to the 25 foot or is
There are some areas where it's like right along the 25 foot, but primarily it's within, I'm going to guesstimate 15 to 25 feet.
Okay.
And so this is it there.
Got it.
And so like here, right, it's a little bit closer than here where it's a little bit further.
Got it.
Yeah. And so, of course, as we move forward with the design, we will get you guys an existing conditions plan that lays out where that trail is and where it's going to be closer and where it's a little bit further, so you can see that, data. Our opinion is that it does not make sense to fill in the existing trail to move it a few feet to be on the 25-foot buffer.
So you'll be cutting down trees to plant, so you'll be cutting, that tree areas where you're going to be putting the condos, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, it's pretty much on the, as you can see on your plan, it's on the 50-foot buffer line, in between the 50 and the 100.
So is there any, to mitigate that, you're going to do a pocket park, and that's great, but I think we're looking also for a lot of vegetation in an area that won't be accessible to the public, or won't be used by the public on a regular basis, something with trees that, are helping with the water quality and helping with the, any kind of habitat and things like that. So to the right of where the pocket park is, you still have some laydown area that's been disturbed. Is there a possibility to make that into a little forest area or something, or forested area?
Yeah, we are certainly here for feedback, and so I love that suggestion, and we will do what we can when we incorporate it into a full design.
And then where would the trail be going if the trail goes past the pocket park at this point?
Yeah, the intent is that the trail would go to our property line.
To your pocket, okay.
Has any consideration been put out, having to do with the fact that it's in the 100-foot FEMA, flood zone? And,
So the flood zone is delineated with a different hatched area, and I should just stay over there really, but so this line here is the FEMA flood zone. I touched it. I'm sorry.
I think you're okay.
Another red one, the other red one that's thinner?
So, yeah, this line back here is the flood zone. And so we show a corner of this building in the flood zone. We don't know, once we get real data, that TBD if that will still be there or not, but our intent was if that corner was still there, then it would just be some
I think
type
the
of
important piece
patio.
is that if any portion of a property is within the FEMA zone, then you have to get flood insurance for it. So I'm just thinking our city is dealing with a lot of challenges right now with current properties that can't get flood insurance and people not being able to buy those. So it's definitely a consideration here when you're designing at least how much the building is in, because that cost to the homeowner goes up the more the building is in that flood zone. So
Yeah, I appreciate your insight, and we'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
Are you envisioning parking being under these footprints?
Yeah, the intent is that they would have garages underneath. we will have to delineate some other parking opportunities, which is on our radar.
I guess I'm asking because I like that as a strategy, but I also feel like we're seeing around town some really creative regrading to sort of raise the grade around the building to cover that up. And I don't know, like, are you planning on the first floors, I guess, being, or regrading of any kind to sort of cover that up, or?
Yeah, so the intent is that these would be drive-in at-grade garages, and so the first floor would be the garage entrance, and it would be, closed in and covered like a typical garage. We don't have a full grading plan yet, but it's certainly something that we can delineate on the future plans for you.
And then I guess following that up on the back side or the water side of the properties, are you envisioning being able to walk right out onto grade, or is there going to be like decks and staircases?
Yeah, so it likely wouldn't be decks, possibly patios, but still sort of to be determined as we get through a more comprehensive design.
How tall are the buildings? How many stories and how many feet?
Yeah, we're still working on determining that, but we are in the incentive overlay district here. And as part of putting the trail in and creating some open space, they're allowed to be 1 story taller than is typically allowed in that zone. But we, not intending to go above what is allowed, I guess is the answer.
I just, in addition to putting buildings there, and so from my point of view, it's sort of, what we're supposed to be in charge of, but you're proposing to put 8 buildings in the 100-foot buffer. There is no impervious there's, a driveway coming through, but there's not the kind of impervious surface we dealt with the existing development further down by Ritchie Supply. And so you're taking a vegetated area and putting impervious area in there, and then you're also having the pathway as impervious, as far as I understand. I don't know if that's how the city has it to be impervious.
Yeah, the pervious pavement.
It's pervious pavement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But you're also impacting the buffer. You're also putting in a pocket park where there's a buffer where you normally wouldn't be able to do any construction or anything like that. And the pocket park's going to benefit everybody, but it's also going to benefit the owners of the condos. So you're gaining a lot. So I just personally feel like, any way that you can move that path back, like really as far back as possible would be great. And then actually restore the area that was the original pathway. Might be helpful. It's something to consider exploring for sure. And then the other part of it is too, buildings have windows, and you talk about the migratory birds, but you're creating a habitat. You're taking away any kind of habitat that they really have existing right now, but you're creating windows that are going to create problems, and whether or not you would consider doing some sort of bird-friendly glass on the windows to mitigate that. And definitely reforesting any area that you can, replanting, and not just replanting with landscape plants, but to have a natural environment there. And that's kind of just a start from my point of view. And I really appreciate you doing another site visit. I think that would be great.
Sure. Yeah, we'd be happy to.
And I think I would piggyback off that a little bit. I agree about the path. And I was thinking, like any change in the width of the path, it would be preferred if it moves towards the buildings instead of towards the wetlands, obviously. And then when you're considering your planting plan, any natural barrier vegetation that could be done to just, because I know part of the appeal is you are right here on this beautiful wetland with all this natural wildlife, and so everybody's going to go sit on the edge, but that can really degrade that living shoreline, to your point, if people are all kind of stomping all over it. So any, low bush things or things you can do that just will sort of deter people from stepping off the path into that 25-foot buffer would be helpful as well.
Sure.
I'm sure we're gonna have a site walk, so we'll have opportunity to comment again. Is there anything else people have right now they'd like to comment on?
Yeah, it sort of feels like a general comment. Maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not. But it almost feels like as some other commissioners have mentioned, like you're sort of looking for the privilege of being able to build in this buffer that we're assigned to protect. And so for me to feel good about that, I would love to see, doing something really kind of not only doing no harm, but actually doing something really beneficial to the environment in the space that's left over. That feels like
Do you have
okay
any
to me.
suggestions in addition to the couple that we've been given
Well,
so
I think
far?
you've been given a lot, but it's sort of like this whole green area feels like it could be almost like a demonstration area for what we can do along this shoreline to really kind of give back to the environment. Whereas we're taking something further up the site, you know what I mean? I don't know what that thing is, but it almost feels like a really good landscape assignment to like bring back something that's, has some innovation to it and, has maybe more planting than you might have expected to do, but it's kind of giving so much back that it makes the ask seem reasonable.
And I would say this is, not exactly in our purview, but touches on that point a little bit. Anything that you can think about in the building design as far as like renewable energy used for, getting fossil fuels off the site, those kinds of things, just to kind of help the greater environmental impact that this potential construction is going to have. We do have goals as a city to really cut back our greenhouse gas emissions. So if that could be just considered or even looked at, or, just to kind of see, is that viable? That would be nice to see too.
And I guess, maybe this is like it's more of an internal question, but I guess I'm not like, why are we even considering permitting this? I don't think there is like a real justification for permitting it, given the rules that we've been asked to uphold.
Yeah, I was
Am I
just
misunderstanding?
Well, if you look at the North Mill Pond, there are only 11 houses that are actually within the wetland buffer at all. All the other houses or buildings are outside of the buffer, and they end out mostly outside of the FEMA zone, except for like more on the north side. And there's like upwards of 50 to 60 lots around. So it's like not really in the precedence of this, just around this area even, to like be building that close. So I don't really understand. I guess I'm kind of at a loss because it confuses me more than anything else. But maybe I'm missing something from like the master plan in that area. But I think a lot of people would really appreciate more green space in that area. So I don't know.
And just knowing that it's such a sensitive resource, right? It's a tidal resource. The water levels are changing, and that line, we can draw it on a map, but that line is going to be changing over the next 10, 20, 30 years. It just feels kind of irresponsible. I'm sure you understand.
I
right, that
hear
this
what
is-
you're saying. Yeah, I
like-
also feel a obligation to have housing for the humans who want to enjoy the city, and I would hate to think that we're going to be exclusionary. I do understand there is only so much land left, and I think that most developers, though this might not be broadcasted or feel correct to you all who see these impacts every day, but wish that all of the developable land was outside of the wetland buffer so we didn't have to impact it, and wish that we weren't in areas that had contamination and existing impacts and things like that. But I also feel a strong responsibility to provide housing to people so that my 7-year-old twins can buy a house someday, which feels less and less likely and definitely impossible in Portsmouth. So I think there is a balance that has to happen, and if there was land here that was out of the buffer that allowed some housing to be created, that would certainly be a consideration, but everything on this parcel is within the buffer, and so I think what we can do is our best, and we can come here early and get feedback from you all, and we can do site walks, which one of you came to, thank you, and we can hear your feedback and do our best to incorporate it in our designs and create a balance.
This is a side note conversation, but since you kind of talked about affordability and things, do you know, are these all intended to be market rate, or is there, okay.
Yeah, the intention here is that these would be market rate housing units. And again, there is a strong downstream impact even when we create market rate housing, because a person sells their, middle attainable house and buys the more luxurious market rate house in Portsmouth, which is more expensive to build because we incorporate a lot of the design features that you guys are talking about and put extensive landscaping and things like that in. But then they sell their house, hopefully in the $500,000 or $600,000, and a family who's in a condo can move up into that $500,000 or $600,000 house, and the family in the
The
condo.
average house in Portsmouth is over $1 million right now, so it's like a house that's $500,000 in Portsmouth.
Yeah,
That's
it's
not a house.
Not necessarily.
I think that I totally understand your rationale, but
Respectfully, though, they're selling a house somewhere, and so that's okay. I can't afford to move to Portsmouth, but I can help build some houses, and people that can afford might sell their house in Newmarket where I live, and maybe I can afford that house, and it creates an opportunity. And so
I just think it puts a lot more stress on all the city infrastructure that's already existing when we're building in an area that is going to now be flooding, and now our city and all these other people who have homes that aren't in the buffer are having to pay for that. So whether you're looking at it from an environmental lens or even just the cost that the city has to deal with over time, I'm all for housing. I don't think it's really the most intelligent place for our city to be placing housing. And yeah, that's
At
just
the-
my opinion.
I hear you.
At the end of the day, I'll just add, because I think there's a lot of similar feedback here. I mean, certainly this commission has been quite supportive of housing in the area. We've approved multiple significantly large projects. So we're always trying to work with applicants
Sure.
to improve housing. What I would say is the city may take the opportunity to change what the regulations are that we have to follow, but this particular development crosses a lot of boundaries that we have responsibility for. And I think the feedback that you're getting is if this came back and there wasn't a substantial change to reduce the impact, it's going to be very difficult for us to find a way to move forward with it. So I would just suggest, we want to, but I would suggest there's quite a lot of work to think about how you could do things that would be different. And I like what Alice recommended. So you got some examples, but again, we have the goal of working with all applicants to support housing and develop properties as people desire and blend that with the regulations, as you know.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you. That's why we're here, is to get this feedback, and it helps inform the design before we spend a lot of money engineering something that you guys really don't want to see. And so we're grateful for the feedback.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's been really well said by everybody. That's our starting point, is we don't want anything to impact that area. So that's kind of where we're coming from. And you've got 8 units, is that what you have to have, is 8 units? And all the things that everybody has said about mitigating this would really, really help, because some of us don't want this.
I mean, we don't want it in the style of maybe development that we are seeing right now, but I mean, thinking of it as an opportunity, if this was some kind of eco-village that had very little impact, or, gave power back to the grid and was doing amazing things with the landscape and the stormwater, I could get really excited about that, and I would love to see that happening in Portsmouth. So if this was one of those, then great. I would love to hear about it,
Sure.
Definitely a lot of really cool work being done at Starbury Bank, refurbishing the old buildings and trying to work within a place where water is flooding into the basements very often. And I'd be really curious, I think, to see what plans for the future and setups, especially in basements in these buildings, would be done. I know they're new construction, so they're not old buildings, but it makes it even easier for, I would assume, builders to be able to kind of add in some features that we don't usually see.
All right, that was a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Are we all good?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, next on the agenda, is anyone here for Onyx? Still no, okay. The next thing on the agenda is 53 Prey Street, an NHDES permit.
Vote to go beyond 5:30?
Oh, was it 5:30 or 6?
It's, yeah, 6 is.
Vote beyond 6. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Good evening. For the record, Eric Weinberg with Altus Engineering. I also have with me Robbie Woodburn from Woodburn and Company, landscape architect, and Ben Auger from Auger Building Company. So this is tax map 102, lot 40. We had a site walk last week. We filed the wetlands permit for this. It has been accepted as administratively completed at DES, and so now we're looking for your guidance and your support on this application. It's 53 Prey Street. It's owned by Rebecca and Kenneth Nicholson. The parcel is very small. It's only 4,584 square feet in area. It has frontage on Prey Street, and there's hardly any space between the building and Prey Street. The driveway pavers actually encroach into the right-of-way. It is to the west or to the left of the plan. Nope, no, don't go anywhere on there.
Looking for the existing conditions.
There's really no difference between the two, and that's part of the application. To the west, the house is right up against the property line. There's an abutting residence on the left side. On the right side has a garage, and the Sanders Lobster Pound is just off the plan. And on the entire right is the Piscataqua River with a boathouse and deck area over the water. What we're doing is we're proposing is to, starting with the deck, replace the deck boards on it. The pier will stay intact, so that's a non-impact area. And we're doing, tearing down the existing covered deck right now, that's covered right now, and reconstructing that in the same location, same footprint, and putting a flat roof on it so that there can be a rooftop access from the second level of the building. And the other orange area is, there's an existing hatch into the basement, and we're reconstructing that. And then there are basically landscape feature improvements on the site. We're getting rid of a lot of the pea stone and hardscape and making it a softer area. And Robbie can speak a little bit about the landscape improvements. And we're also replacing a fence. We do need zoning board approval on this for the fence replacement and the reconstruction of the deck area. We don't need any other environmental permits. We're not in the 100-foot wetland buffer for a conditional use permit, and so there's no planning board approvals. We're increasing open space by about 400 square feet on the site, and I think it's a very simple project. We're not impacting any resource area. We're all working within disturbed areas within the buffer. And I'm going to let Robbie speak a little bit about the landscape improvements. Thank you.
I was about to say good evening, sorry, good afternoon. Robbie Woodburn from Woodburn and Company. For those of you who are on the site walk, you'll remember that a good portion of the property is crushed stone with a few plants, and then just to the north of the residence, there's an existing brick patio. We're replacing the brick patio with a pervious brick patio. We're replacing the pea stone area with added plant beds and pervious brick stepping stones that you can see that are there. We're basically greening this up a lot more than it already is. And then any pavement we have, we're making pervious. It's fairly simple. We have not developed the specific planting plan yet, but we've made a commitment on the plan to be 50% native. We see it as going to be a little pocket garden that are so popular around Portsmouth. So I can answer any questions that you have.
I have one question.
Sure.
Does this lawn, but property area, does the water ever come up over the?
That is a good
Seawall?
question. I have not seen that happen. I don't know the answer to
Okay,
that.
I guess just keep that in mind when you're
Totally.
deciding what to
Yeah.
plant.
Well, you were not on the sidewalk.
I
correct?
was on the sidewalk, but I didn't ask it then.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
Didn't
no,
come to
and
mind.
there wasn't any evidence of it. Usually you can see
Yeah.
that, but
Yep.
I don't know specifically the answer to that question.
Okay. And I don't know if it's on the plan or if you had mentioned it, you didn't know, was the lawn potentially going to be clover?
We
Was
talked
that-
about that being
Okay.
potentially microclover. I don't want to commit to that yet because
Yeah.
I want to make sure that I have my ducks in a row on that, but I think that would be a really nice solution in that space. It's so small.
I guess just curious how that does if water does come over
Yeah.
the edge, which
Yep.
I'm
So,
sure in future
that's all right.
years
Exactly.
it will more frequently if
Yeah.
it hasn't already. Okay.
I know there's been water in the street,
Mm-hmm.
but I did have a conversation with the owner about it, the past owner about it a year ago, and she was really, I don't know that it does. I know it's in the street, and I know Saunders gets it, but I don't think they do.
I'm sure at some point it will though,
Yeah,
so
true, good point.
it's only a
Yes.
matter of time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Barbara.
I had a question for, first of all, I think it's great that you're doing all these plantings. It's going to be definitely an improvement on what's there.
Yeah.
So as far as maintenance for the plantings and the fact that you really have to be pretty strict about, fertilizer and, so is it possible to do a maintenance plan for the
Of course.
owners and?
Of course.
And to have that?
Yeah.
And how do you do that with new plantings, basically, with the restrictions of the, what you can amend the soil with and things like
Well,
that?
we will amend the soil with new loam, maybe super loam, that
Right.
has a compost in it, and then be very low key from there.
Yeah. That'd be kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
But that would be great.
So maintenance plan. Anything else?
No, not for me.
Could you talked about this on the site walk, what you're putting under the driveway with the snow, so to help with the snow melt?
Oh, yeah.
I think that was fast, because obviously there's no room to push snow anywhere.
Exactly.
And so,
And we did it on, I forgot the number of Prey Street, it's on the corner of Marcy and Prey. That driveway was heated as well. On these small city driveways, if you have the resources to do it, doing heating your pavement, there are two ways to do it. In this case, we're doing the pipes embedded in the base of the, they call it hydronically. It's in the base of the material underneath the brick. These days, they have them tied into computer programs that are tied into the weather service, and they only turn on like 20 minutes before the storm, and so they're preheated, and so when the initial storm comes down, they're already warm. You don't get that initial icing, then they turn off after the storm. It's great. It's a good solution in urban areas with small areas where there's no place to put the snow.
I've heard of that. That's cool.
yeah, I thought that was really cool, the sidewalk.
Okay, thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Just want to comment, so we would be looking for you as the commission to write a letter of support for the wetlands application and send it to Concord.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
I don't plan on voting.
Okay. Okay, so you'll be abstain. I'll make sure to say that. Are we ready for a motion?
And this is basically just to like expedite the permitting process for them, is that?
This is just a normal standard dredge and fill, so it's just recommending approval, postponement, denial.
Yeah, not expedited.
The next one is to expedite.
Okay. The letter of support language confused by it.
I'll make a motion to make a recommendation for approval for 53 Price Street with the condition, not that it's really a condition, but that they have a maintenance plan for the new gardens.
And that should include no fertilizer use?
That should, yeah, to follow the regulations, shoreline regulations and different
Okay.
regulations we have.
Okay.
But the shoreline regulations actually for DES, so that'll help.
Do we have a second?
Well, I'll second that.
Okay, discussion?
I just want to say, I think that this was such a confined piece of property, and it just seems like the work that you guys done has been really well thought out to reduce the impacts on the existing piece of property, so.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it seems like whatever opportunities that they take to do plantings that will be effective with like water intrusion, probably they'll do better, but I think that's kind of the only thing, like I think that would be the best for the property.
I think we hear a lot from applicants that I don't have a lot of space to do, improvements to help water quality and infiltration. And this is a perfect example of like, yeah, they hardly have any, and yet look what they were able to accomplish. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right, are we ready for a vote? All in favor? Abstain? Okay, great. Thank you. Right. Last application on the agenda is for 34 Ceres Street, DES. That's a permit by notification. Someone here to speak to that? You're the last one standing.
I'm Kirsten Fordham from Riverside and Pickering, presenting the project for Moran Towing. The project proposes to remove 38 existing oak failing pilings and replace in kind with 38 Greenheart pilings. And it's pretty straightforward. That's it. Some blocking between the piles. It's going to be replaced in kind. We're going to do all the work by barge. We'll use a vibratory hammer. We'll perform the work in the dredge window between November 15th and March 15th. The Greenheart pilings, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but it's a tropical wood. They outlast the oak pilings by 40 years or more. So that is going to help prevent, I guess, repair in the near future. It's a better pile for Moran because the tugs bump up against them, and that's, that decreases the lifespan significantly.
Questions from the commissioners? I was just curious how long the ones that are in there now have been in there.
I believe that they did work the last permit. I might even have it on here. Hang on 1 second.
And then I guess how long are the new ones projected to last? I know you said
About
40
60 years.
6 years, okay.
I don't know if it was pilings or not, but the last DES approval was in 1998, so a little under 30 years. I know that their piece and parcel, I don't know if you've ever been out on that deck, but they're in rough shape. The Greenheart also prevents any marine worms, or they can't get into the pile like they can with the oak or the pine as well.
That's interesting.
Sort of a logistics question. So when you're taking out the piling, you're taking out the pilings. You're not
Correct.
cutting them off at the
Correct. If we can remove them, DES prefers that we remove them. If we can't, then we'd have to send a diver down to cut it at the bottom. But with the vibe, we call it a vibe, but it's, the vibratory hammer, it's not a hammer, but it uses vibration. It just pulls them right up, and that's how we install them again, the same way.
And do you install them right? Is there any kind of erosion coming out when you remove them and you've sort of exposed this area, or?
So there's,
do
it's,
it right away?
is there going to be some sediment? Will sediment kick up a little bit? Maybe a little bit, but it's not like using the old hammers. It literally it's you wouldn't believe how small the movement it is. It decreases all the sound that goes out into the water, so it's not bothering the marine life. Is there going to be a little bit? Probably, but it's not a big cloud. It's just a little bit right around the pile.
And then immediately the new one goes right in, kind of thing? Okay.
Thank you.
To support everything.
I'm sorry?
Like, to maintain the support of the structure.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And we'll put new blocking in, which really isn't like a permit issue for the Conservation Commission, but what it does is it shores up those piles. It gives it extra support. So when the tugs bang up against it, they're not gonna, it won't bother the new piles.
Any other questions? Ready for a motion?
Do we need to do a motion? Yeah, do we need to?
So it's a motion to sign to expedite to a 10-day review instead of a 24 or 25-day review.
Just a motion to sign the permit by notification, essentially? Okay. Someone want to make, if that's the motion they want to make, I shouldn't
I
presume.
will make a motion that we support or recommend or approve the permit by notification for 34 Ceres Street.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay, are we ready for a vote? All in favor? Okay,
Perfect. Thank you for your time.
thank you.
Have a
Thank
nice
you.
night.
Thanks, you too.
Thanks for coming by.
All right, did we have any other, I guess, what do we do about Onyx? We gotta
So-
postpone to the next meeting?
Yeah, so
If we
65.
want to?
Yeah, if we want to. 65 Onyx is not here, and they sent additional materials this morning that I sent out to everybody. But that is another pretty basic application where they're having structural issues with a home over on Onyx Lane, so they're putting in piers along the foundation to stabilize it, and it sounds like they're just doing a couple feet out from the building of excavation and 2 to 3 feet down. I don't know the exact details, but that's what we have so far. But if we want to wait another month to hear it from a representative, that's okay. I think they are trying to get it done before winter, so that's the only issue that I foresee if anyone wants to postpone. But also, they're not here, so.
And you were told that they were gonna be here, right?
So I got in contact with them last night and this morning, and they should have been sending someone from Groundworks, the engineering company, to talk about the push piers and how they install them. But it looks like that did not occur.
Sounds like it should just be moved to the next meeting.
Yeah.
We'll need to hear it, no matter how basic it is.
Yeah, I agree, because my questions had to do with, there's nothing about stormwater management, they're going to have piles of dirt there and
Erosion control.
yeah, erosion control.
I was curious if the deck was gonna have to be removed for
Yeah.
part of them, some of them going in. Yeah, okay, so would someone, if that's the consensus, to postpone, which I understand they need to stabilize their house, but I kind of feel like we do need to hear it. Would someone like to make a motion?
I can make a motion to postpone 65 Onyx Lane to our December Conservation Commission meeting.
Perfect.
Second.
And is there any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay,
Nice.
thank you. Do we have any other business?
just what we talked about yesterday. So, it sounds like the planning board has been doing a lot of work sessions recently on different topics with the zoning ordinance and different sort of ways of boards working. And the chair of the planning board, Rick Chelman, has suggested doing a work session with us down the line sometime soon on changes to Article 10 that the planning board is interested in making. And we've talked about this in the past. I think probably 2 years ago now, we had some work sessions, and then we had a work session with them, a joint one, and it kind of just fell flat. Nothing was really done out of that. But we still have all the redlined edits of what the commission wanted to see changed in Article 10 from then. And I don't know if anybody has any ideas now, but I was thinking for homework over the next few months, we can kind of all dive through Article 10 and kind of pick out anything that either you love about Article 10 that you don't want to see changed, like criteria or specific regulations or buffer distances, things like that, or if there's anything that you want to see added into what we can protect under our jurisdiction.
We're making things clearer.
Yeah, making things
clarifying things. If we
clear.
think-
Some stuff is gray, and it's kind of up to us to interpret. I think that's kind of where a lot of the planning board issues fall, is that a lot of things are interpretive, so they want to clear those up. Peter and I think that's a good thing, that we can interpret that. But, so we have our own ideas for edits as staff too. So we're thinking maybe December or January, we can have just a Conservation Commission work session to talk about different edits that people are interested in. Or if no edits are preferred, then that's kind of what we're talking about. But just to prepare ourselves for when the planning board comes knocking.
Did you say there's an existing artifact that has information that we've already documented about? Is that something we
Yeah.
can access, or we already have
I
access
can
to?
send it around. So I think it was probably right before you joined. We had a couple work sessions, and everybody had kind of gone over and supported a red line document that had a bunch of different edits. And I still have that, so I can send that out,
Sure.
so we can start looking at those.
Yeah, that would be
I
helpful.
think that'd be good,
Yeah.
because we spent a lot of time on it the first time.
Yeah.
And to not have to spend maybe as much time on it, like reinventing the wheel again would be nice.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple things that Peter and I have talked about in the last few months that we want to change, like kind of clarifying soil disturbance, because that's kind of the issue that anytime someone has an impact, if it's soil disturbance, that's like a kicker for needing a permit. So we kind of want to clarify that in the ordinance and make sure that gets in there. And also, we've been having a lot of people recently that say they have hazardous trees that they want to remove from the wetland or the 25-foot. And in the past, if they've been really hazardous, like visibly leaning over, we ask them to get an arborist that kind of goes through an assessment and verifies that it's hazardous and shouldn't go through a process for permitting. So we're interested in hearing how people might want to either put that as black and white in the ordinance or not have that process and just have every tree come. So we're trying to talk to Max, the city arborist, too, to figure out kind of what's a safe and healthy way to go about that without delaying people's permits and things like that. But if anybody has any ideas,
It
think
would
about it.
also be worth, when you're chatting with Rick and the board, if we are going to get together, to meet with them face to face to go over different things, their ideas, our ideas. I'd love to get any feedback from them on, when we're submitting materials to them, are we providing everything that they need to have a clear view and to be efficient in their final decisioning?
That's a good point. It's totally like a,
Just an opportunity when we don't get
seems it
together
leaves our
very
desk, we
often.
kind of forget about it.
Some things that we could do differently that would help them.
Good point.
May I suggest maybe January as opposed to December?
Oh, yeah. The holidays kind
I don't know,
of screw us.
it's gonna be busy. And maybe our agenda, oh, it doesn't matter, because we'll have it on a separate. I mean, maybe if we have a light agenda, it could be part of.
Yeah, we could do it for like 30 minutes after
That'd be
a
kinda
normal
nice.
meeting. But maybe I'll send out some doodle polls, and then also include just the normal meeting date.
Yeah, things usually get quieter, it seems like, in the winter,
Yeah,
in terms of permit review.
yeah, hopefully. The only thing is we'll be missing Stuart by then because I think he's traveling.
Yeah, he'll be gone in December.
You can
send
email
stuff over
his
email.
comments. That's fine.
I'm gonna miss the December meeting too.
Oh, come on.
I was also going to suggest we look at the meeting that we had, like that one that
You wanna
Jess, you had
rewatch,
started, because I
yeah.
think some ideas might have come out of that, too. Yeah.
Which one, sorry?
The one we had that Jess had sort of spearheaded, where we all met.
Oh, yeah, in the other room.
Yeah, everybody discussed ideas. I
Yeah.
think there were some things that might fit into that, I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Look at the notes.
When was that? In the summer? Is that a summer meeting?
This year?
I don't know.
Oh, yeah, it was July.
July.
Special meeting? Yeah.
Yeah, our special meeting.
Yeah, 3 months ago. 4.
I have no concept of time, so it would have been last month or 6 months ago.
It's wild. Okay, so I'll send those around, and then I'll send out some doodle poll stuff for January. That sounds good.
Do you know why the previous discussion didn't go anywhere? Is it just the wrong time or something more specific?
I can't remember. I remember when we sat down here with the planning board on one side, us on the other side. I think we said a lot of things and said our edits, and then they said their preferred edits. But it didn't seem like they
I don't
wanted
think we got through everything. I
we
felt
had
like there
so
needed to be
many.
another meeting and just, I don't know, it never got planned.
I think there's a lot to take in.
Yeah.
But,
They were at the very beginning stage, sort of, not very beginning, but they were early on.
right. And I think they also have so many work sessions and so many meetings that this kind of changes are at the kind of bottom of their to-do list right now. So we keep getting kicked down the road because I know they wanted to start talking about it this last spring. And they had like 5 different work sessions on housing and ability and building permits.
We were supposed to be one, weren't we?
Yeah, so, I don't know. But it's coming back around.
They were receptive. It's not like they weren't, I mean, I wouldn't say they were receptive to like every single thing we said, but they were like taking it in. It's not like they were,
Yeah.
we don't want to talk to you ever again.
Yeah, they were receptive.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? All right, meeting adjourned.